Parliament returns to Canberra this week and housing leads off to debate as Labor brings forward its 5% government-backed deposit scheme. So first home buyers can access the scheme on October 1 rather than Jan 1. And the government has also removed caps and income tests to allow more people to access it. Let's go to Canberra. Joining us live on this Monday morning, the Liberal Senator Jane Hume. We'll start off there today. Jane, your thoughts on this morning?
Pete, this is a program that was originally initiated by the coalition government back in the Morrison era, and it was very, very successful in getting new home buyers into the market with a low deposit, but still having the creditworthiness that's required of new home buyers because the banks, approved banks, were involved in the process. All it really does is make sure that the government is guaranteeing that getting rid of that mortgage guarantee, which is so expensive for new home buyers. It's been very successful in the past for both new home buyers and also for women that are going back into the home buying market after a family breakdown. So this is a really important program. I'd like to see what the details are, exactly what those guardrails are on incomes, on housing prices, because let's face it, it's not actually building any new houses. This is not addressing the supply issue, but it will help some of those new home buyers.
No, that is the key issue for sure. It still doesn't address supply, even though Claire O'Neill wants to join up with Murray Watt to clear a backlog of 26,000 homes that are awaiting environmental approval. So how much difference would that make?
Well, if there are changes to the EPBC Act that, I remember were being proposed under the Morrison government and blocked by Labor at the time, that would be something that we would be interested in seeing. We also saw last week at the Productivity Roundtable an agreement to freeze the National Construction Code for 1 year. Now, that, again, a coalition government policy that we took to the last election, so something that we would welcome. However, only as recently as last Thursday, we heard the Housing Minister say that the 2022 changes to the Construction Code were worthwhile. There's been around 1,500 new rules and regulations put around construction through either the Treasury portfolio or the infrastructure portfolio just since Labor came to office. So you can understand why that cost of red tape has increased so exponentially. One of the things that we would like to see is the government consider the coalition's housing probity bill that's being introduced into the Senate. What that will do is make sure that the CFMEU can't be involved in any projects that come out of the Housing Australia Future Fund, because there's an estimated around 30% tax on housing that has been placed upon those projects in which the CFMEU are involved. Let's not forget, Pete, the Housing Australia Future Fund is $10 billion that's been borrowed in your name, and we're yet to see anything like the number of houses that it promised. In fact, at last stretch, we heard it was responsible for 2,000 houses, but Penny Wong couldn't tell us how many of those houses have been built versus how many have been purchased. At the end of last year, the Housing Australia Future Fund had only been responsible for purchasing 340 houses. That's what your $10 billion had paid for. Now, that's not doing anything to reach Labor's housing supply targets. They've said they want 1.2 million new houses within 5 years. That started as an election commitment, then it moved to a stretch target, went to a target after that. Now it's simply an aspiration. I do feel that Labor have really failed on this commitment.
Well, doesn't Treasury released data last week that says they were falling well short of that 1.2 million target?
Of course they're going to fall well short of that $1.2 million target. As long as they remain committed to red tape, as long as they remain committed to allowing the CFMEU onto construction sites, as long as they want to increase the industrial relations impositions on small businesses, particularly construction businesses, they'll never reach that target.
All right, let's just switch topics. On the front page of The Australian, so this all comes after the roundtable talks last week, comments by the Prime Minister today that economic reform is coming. No major tax changes until the next election, so the voters can decide. Howard did it with the GST. Is this the right approach, whatever Albanese has in mind?
Well, we'd certainly like to see a mandate for any changes that were made. That's not what we got in the last Parliament. You'll remember in the last Parliament, after they promised that there would be no changes to superannuation and no new taxes, the first thing that they introduced was a tax on unrealised capital gains within superannuation. Now, everyone was blindsided by that, and you can see how they're struggling now to get that through the Parliament. Now, they'll do it eventually because they'll buddy up with the Greens, as we would expect. The Coalition will fight it every step of the way. If there are going to be new tax changes, it is something that needs to be socialised, but undoubtedly, tax reform must be on the agenda. It simply can't be at the expense, though, of retirees that have relied on a system in order to make their investments and save for their retirement.
OK, but on that point...
It can't be at the expense of Australian workers that are already spending too much, and it can't be at the expense of small business who are going out of business at a rate of knots.
With that said,
a rate we haven't seen before.
Do you think the tax system is skewed unfairly against younger workers?
We certainly know that the tax system has a disproportionate effect and has some negative effects on intergenerational equity. I don't doubt that.
So is there room to move with that?
But it is going to take some, dare I say, a little bit of bravery. It's not going to be something
like
that can be, if you're going to do genuine tax reform, you have to look at the system. And you can't simply say, oh, we're not going to deal with the GST. No, we're not going to deal with income taxes here. No, we're not going to deal with, whatever taxes they might be. I mean, I thought that the Productivity Roundtable were very specific last week about what needs to happen. They need to see company tax cuts in order to make sure that we can put a fire under our businesses and get economic growth moving. That just doesn't seem to be something that the Labor government ever been committed to. The last time the Coalition decided that the most important thing we could do was to lower company tax cuts, they fought us every step of the way.
Well, we'll have to leave it there, Jane. Good to see you, though. Thank you. We'll chat again next week. Well, coming up, Volodymyr Zelensky, he's